Okay, so two really crazy things. One is, how do you follow up on a, galactic, intergalactic space presentation? So I'm going to bring you. How many people came in a car? So that's back to the sort of surface level of where we are. And the other one is that if Sushmita, you couldn't use this, I have absolutely no chance. So is that the one? Okay, good. So good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here. I really want to thank Business World to sort of invite us to represent Tata Motors. Of course, being at the end of the day, I've seen in most seminars, people hate cars by the end of the day, and now they hate the earth as well. So we have no hope as car makers. But hopefully through design, we can claw back some credibility and show you what we are doing is meaningful, important, and of course, very, very much rooted in design. Business and design are sort of two words, I think, Pradyumna, we have been trying to put together for the last 20 odd years. The fact that we have a seminar using the same two words means that we haven't probably been as successful as designers to convince business people that design is important, or the other way around. Some of the panel discussions actually touched on that. But what I'd like to say is that in Tata Motors, design is very much a part of the business. A new car model would cost anywhere between 700 to 1,000 crores to bring from a sheet of paper to sheet metal, as I call it, which is a huge responsibility for a design team. Once you're starting to stamp metal and put cars out, it's too late to sort of go back and say, shit, we made a mistake. So process is important. This responsibility that you have as designers and a design team in a huge company like Tata Motors and others is important. The other thing is the future. When you talk about the future, it's also about aspiration. When you talk about aspiration, people actually think of what they are going to be, and everyone wants to be better, faster, younger, prettier. You don't aspire to be worse than you are today. So aspiration and the future are sort of directly linked, and this is the key to where we come in as Tata Motors Design. So a lot of you probably know these cars. We've got a history of creating actually new segments. The Indica was one of them. A lot of you have grown up with that. What's important is that, that's the car that made me want to be a car designer and also made me want to join Tata Motors. I remember when that came out in '98, this is before internet and the mobile phone and all of that. I took a bus from where I used to stay in South Bombay to not very far from here in Worli, where we had a showroom, and I stood there at 8 o'clock in the morning waiting for the showroom door to open so that I could see that car. And it's a really, really important car, not only in the history of car making in India, but in my own personal story. And then as we went along, we sort of created some products. I touched on that word aspiration. By the time we reached here, sort of 2014, 15, a very important thing had happened in India. The level of expectation had changed completely around us. And we found ourselves in an extremely difficult market situation. So much so that it almost threatened the existence of the passenger car business. What happened actually? People talk always about market share. Any business magazine you read, any forum you go to, everyone will talk about market share. But what gets you market share is actually mind share. This is a very important term. Mind share is that space in the customer's mind that your product or service actually occupies. If you sit at a dinner table as a family discussing buying something, an apartment, a mobile phone, a TV, there will be 2 or maximum 3 products that you will talk about. In most cases, there will be 2. I mean, if you look at the mobile phone industry, it's like that. 2, maximum there'll be 1 more. If you as a brand are not in those 2, in a dinner table conversation or in that mind space, no one turns up in your showroom. So that's what was happening to us in that sort of phase. That while we were doing good products, decent products, we had lost mind share. And mind share loss meant that people didn't turn up at your showrooms. And that was, that had a huge business impact. So what do we do? Today when you consume or you first hear about a product or a service, you actually see it on a 5-inch mobile phone, on a tiny little screen, and that's where in the first 20 seconds, you decide if you're interested in that product or service. It's a bit like the dating app, you swipe right, swipe left. You have that literally such a small window of time to interest your potential customer. So we said as a design team that our product should look absolutely stunning at that mobile phone level. This is not about a big hoarding and full spread ads and all of that. At the mobile phone level, are you winning that mind share? And this is why we called it impact design. Impact design is very simple. It's impact at first sight. That means when you first see it, then you get the person interested enough to go to the showroom. Because if you lose the war there, you have no one in the showroom. So that's what impact design was about. And of course, when he bought and touched and felt the product, it created lasting impact. We want people to have stories with their cars. A lot of you will remember a story with your car. 8 of you and an ambassador or whatever it is. Many people even give names to their cars. Do you remember yourself giving a name to your toaster or your washing machine? A car is that sort of object which really, I think it's the most, let's say, inhuman object. Because people connect emotions directly with their cars. It takes them to places, and I'll touch upon that a little later. On the commercial vehicle side, we don't forget that we are also a commercial vehicle player. We're the sort of leader in commercial vehicles. This is the kind of scenario we saw, that there were some products which were over 30 years old. If you look at the 407, this white one, we had my team actually designed the sticker which said 30 years old or 30-year anniversary. And there were some other products which were extremely, extremely modern. So the Prima, the Signa, the Ultra, these were created even before the road network began, or we see it in this kind of size and scale today. The Prima, the red truck, was launched in 2007, before we had the highways that we see today. And this is the sort of Tata Motors or the Tata spirit, to do things before they're even thought of or anticipated. But there's a problem. You have products which are 35 years old and products which are 3.5 months old, all in the same showroom. And the brand managers, the design business, or the business managers came and said, Pratap, we need something that unifies the commercial vehicle space as well. Now, since we're talking about business and design and sustainability, all the products that you saw in the slide earlier, the passenger vehicles, each one was designed on an individual platform. So you had to do every development from scratch. You had to literally reinvent the wheel if you wanted to go from a hatchback to a sedan. What we've moved to now is to global flexible architectures. This is very, very important. I think even Shushmita's talk talks about these sort of modular systems and architectures. The Indian customer is expecting the best, is expecting it quick. So let me tell you, in the 7 years that it takes us to bring a car into the market, the mobile phone world has changed 12 times. So there'll be 12 different or 10 different models of phones in the time we bring one car to the market. After all that expense and effort, so we said, no, we have to do things faster. We, of course, have a group company within Tata Motors, which is Land Rover. So we used one of their architectures called the Omega. It gives us the big products. And then for the smaller one, we have the Alpha, which is gives us cars from 3.8 meters to 4.2 meters. What's the concept? Basically, everything that's mechanical, you know, the engine, the transmission, the chassis, etc., that you as a customer don't see is common, and we put what we call different top hats on that chassis. So it's like a skateboard, if you can imagine a skateboard, and we put different top hats for different needs. So let me show you a film on the first two products on these two architectures. Sorry, how do you play the film? 1 second, who's moving it? You're moving it? Yeah, yeah. इसके बाद, हाँ ये वाला. Volume. So you would have seen that these films are actually all centered around people. You know, we don't talk about how many cc engine and what power and God knows what else. It's about bringing that smile to the people that are using these and interacting with these products. Those are, of course, models, as you know, not just the cars, but the people. But hold that thought, because I'll show you where they are not models. Okay, we're doing something very similar in commercial vehicles, actually. Where we have a modular approach to get everything from a small product like the Ace all the way to the Prima that I showed you earlier. And this is a very, very, very important part of design being intrinsically linked to the business. You know, as a designer, I can't say, oh, you know, I want to do this and I want to do that. It has to fit within a corporate environment, a corporate business reality. And the sooner you understand this as a designer, actually the better it is. Okay, while we were designing the products, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, we also had to build a design team. So when I joined, you know, in 2011, when I took the job, we were about 30 odd designers, you know, mainly in India and 3 or 4 in the UK. And, you know, we said, look, to have a real global footprint and a real global input to design, we need to create some design centers. So we have 4 now, 1 in the UK in Coventry, 1 in Pune, of course, here in India, 1 in Turin in Italy, and a small one in South Korea, which gives us access to the commercial vehicle sort of design. This is, again, fundamentally important. You know, so we have, I think, at last count, we have 14 different nationalities of designers designing our buses and trucks. 2 things which are unique to the Tata Motors design team. One is, I think, globally, it's the only one which actually designs buses, trucks, and cars with the same single design team. There is no other company in the world which does that. And this brings some incredible advantages. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is that it gives us a perspective. a global point of view. So all the cars and the products that I'm competing with in India, or we are competing with in India, actually about 84 to 85% of them would have been designed in a global studio somewhere, in the US or in Europe or in the Far East. So you can imagine our competition in India as a design team is not from India. So you have to create this global footprint to make things work. But with that, with the 14 different or 15 different nationalities of designers, comes the management of culture. So most of my day job is actually managing creativity from all these people. You know, the Italians, the French, there's an Aussie, there's a designer from America. Now when you describe a compact sedan, which is like a sub 4-meter sedan, to an American designer, it's always very, very interesting because they have no conception of what that means. It's a bit like, going to space. We really don't know. But what it does is it gives you some incredible solutions because the designers are challenged. The best way to extract, I say, creativity from designers is to put them out of their comfort zone. So you could, if you were designing a small hatchback, if you give it to the Italian team or you give it to the UK or India team, you'll get, a decent design. But you give it to someone from the States where, 3.8 meters is just the load bed of a truck. Forget about a car. It brings you perspective, it brings you flavor, which you can't, which you don't expect, but is always, always super useful. So bring diversity to your teams is what I'm basically trying to say. Wherever you're operating, the more points of view you have, the better the outcome. Sorry, I'll just go back. Here, it's also, everyone talks about computers a lot. Computer this, computer that. But we haven't lost this sort of human touch. So in all of our studios, you can actually make, we've developed this, that you make clay models touched by hand, sculpted by the clay modeler and the designer together. So you can see it's a very, very hands-on process. I'm not selling a car in a video game. This is a car which someone will touch, feel, experience in a showroom and will live, with this product. So for me, or for us as car designers, bringing or not losing the human element in creation, in the creative process, is absolutely fundamental. And then yes, we use technology to go back and forth, share data with others, etc., etc. But all our studios are clay enabled. And we're really proud of that actually. So we've spoken a lot about passenger cars. I've spoken in many, many forums. Everyone wants me to talk about cars. But I thought I'll take this opportunity to actually speak about our truck design language, or the CVs, what I spoke to you earlier. The legacy of products is huge, 40 years to something we launched 4 months ago. How do you tie it all in? And we actually dug quite deep as a design team, as a marketing team. We came together, again, bring parts of your business together for good business results. So good design is good business, but good design is a part of a larger thing, a larger corporate scenario or organizational scenario that you should not forget. So please interact, bring people in. Don't have this sort of fortress mentality that, I'm going to design something and chuck it over the wall and then the engineers do it. No, bring them together. And we also went into what our commercial vehicles mean, and primarily they were about trust. That you put your child in a Tata school bus, or you put your little mobile phone package in a little Tata truck, it'll reach the destination safely. The other big thing that's happened globally and is happening here is an incredible, incredible shortage of drivers, truck drivers. There's a 30% shortage of truck drivers in India today. Why? Because it's one of the least aspirational professions you can think of. Kids, when they're kids, they say, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a train driver even. But no one says, I want to be a truck driver. Why? Because our image of the truck driver is we are in our lovely air-conditioned car and we look up at this guy, he's in a rickety cabin, wearing a vest because it's too hot, and no one wants to be that. So 7 out of 10 trucks in India today, and it's more in Europe by the way, are not being driven. So you can sell all you want, 30% of them will be sitting in a yard because there's no one to drive them. And we've done that. We've done that as a business, that we've degraded this human being into a less than human, and that's the reason why no one wants to be a truck driver. So anyway, we created a very simple visual cue to tie in all our commercial vehicle products. We've codified it. It's called the trust bar. It's a very simple element that you see in the front of the vehicle as it approaches, or it's in your rear view mirror. Instantly, you'll recognize this as Tata Motors. We're going to start rolling this out as we go along, but it ties up a lot of things, trucks, buses, pickups, small commercial vehicles, vans. So it was a difficult job to put this all under one sort of visual umbrella. And this is how it'll turn out. So if you look at the electric bus, it has it. The little delivery truck will have it, and everything in between, and the biggest truck. So next time, hopefully you see a Tata truck with a trust bar, you will remember this conversation. Just a clip on how it's being applied on two products. Remember this image for later. So going back to respect, these products are a result of two things. One is, merging our CV and PV, commercial vehicle and passenger vehicle teams. If you saw the way we bring color, texture, fabric, materials into the little trucks, it's exactly like how we do it in a car. Because we believe that there should be no difference between if you're selling it to, a hatchback customer or someone driving the Lil Intra. That Lil Intra, by the way, also has the first air-conditioned cabin in its segment in the country, and we are extremely, extremely proud of that from design, that we could make that push, because it's all about respect. And if we didn't do it as Tata Motors, who would? So, when you see that little, bringing in a little bit of color, you can charge 2 mobile phones, there's a place for the water bottles, some of them need to actually take some rest between delivery jobs, so the seat is flat. Which allows them to do that. There are many, many things, which go far beyond what the product is described to us by product planning or marketing. We had lots of discussions, that's the word I use, for those features. They said, why do you want to bring in color from, color into the cabin? Why do you want to bring in air conditioning? These things cost money. But I think it costs more not to do it. Because the truck community will reject your product. They will say, no sir, we want to drive, we want to join the fleet which has the better cab. That's going to happen to business. So while it's a result of doing this, the primary motivation has always been respect the guy who drives the product. And like I said, it's a great product. The seat design, ergonomics. We spend a lot of time getting all the seat design right. Why? The biggest cause of accidents in trucks is basically the guy has fallen asleep. Why has he fallen asleep? Fatigue. So we made a more comfortable seat. A lot of people said, if you make it comfortable, won't he fall asleep? It's not right. It's not the case. It's out of sheer fatigue that they fall asleep. If there's comfort, he'll be more his focus of his mind and body will be on the road. So these are the things we do which many people won't see, but they'll certainly feel. And this is how we contribute to this, this societal shift that we want to bring. So gearing up for some launches. This is going to come soon. Our Corpcom team is here. We are now planning the launch soon. So again, hoping to bring a game changer to the premium car segment, a premium hatchback segment, just under 4 meters. Incredible product designed by the global team. And another really funky product. Can we have the AV? This is a really cool little product which will come after. इसको play कर दो. So believe it or not, this car and the gold car that you saw, the Altros, are underneath basically the same car. This was what I was talking about, architecture concept, that you can deliver a completely different experience to the customer, a completely different product, where it counts, what he or she touches, feels, smells, looks at, but everything else underneath is business. You've got to make 1 million cars for a platform to be commercially successful. So you must remember this balance between business and sort of this customer-facing softer elements. We are going to launch also a 7-seat version soon. So these are the 2 real cool launches. This is on the Land Rover platform or the Land Rover architecture. It gives us real ability like no other SUV in the market for big Indian families. A lot of great research, again, at accessible price points. I think Pradumna was talking about, and earlier we were talking about how designer is a label to make something more expensive. Actually, it's not true. A designer can do a lot in containing costs for the company and delivering a product to the customer which is accessible. And it has a huge role in doing that, as well as, of course, the luxury and all of that stuff. So this is that H2X. We're going to bring this little car to reality as well. For the Greta Thunbergs in all of us, we also, both these architectures are completely EV enabled. That means you can make a battery electric version of all these cars that you saw, because the architecture is already protected for that. You have the batteries on the floor and the motors in front. And then, again, this is something we'll be launching in the Indian market soon, after the Nexon EV, which comes first, actually. And again, these are game-changing products, because the price point at which we will bring them will make EVs really accessible. Today, you want to buy an EV, there's nothing in India, which is with decent range, etc., which is under 30 lakh rupees. So we are going to bring between 16 to 18 lakhs a product which will give you 300 kilometers of autonomy. And that's a phenomenal amount. Most of you would have traveled maybe 20, 30, 40 kilometers a day in an average city. So that's 10 days of driving without recharging. This is something we're really excited about. And I think this is the tipping point where our internal combustion engines translate into or transform into EVs. Same thing's happening in the people movers. We have the little Zip all the way to a 60-seat bus. These are all ready. In fact, in commercial vehicles, we feel EV adoption will be faster because you can plan the route, you can plan the charging points, you know exactly how much distance every product will do on a certain route. So the adoption of EVs in India will actually come from here, and two-wheelers. We don't do two-wheelers, but. Okay, going back to the smiles of those models. These are actually, when I joined, or when I took over the job in 2011, I went to some of the blogs, and I was seeing what people were saying about Tata Motors. So most of them were fire the head of design. So that was like the first thing you would read. And which is a very strange place to actually come into a job, because you're already pre-fired. So, but we took it upon ourselves that we will convert that negative comment into something very positive. And these are actually photographs that people send us on a daily basis that they have shot themselves. When you take a selfie with something, you actually like that something in all probability. Even if you take a selfie with a friend, you like the friend. So in this case, you can see, and of course Pradumna holding his key. That's one of the most special moments for me, by the way. But it also shows you different age groups. You can see the little kid there. You can see someone posing with his car. You can see they're in Ladakh or Kashmir. This one's an amazing one where there's this little 3-year-old girl literally hugging the car. And an SUV is supposed to be sort of aggressive and macho and God knows what else. But we don't design our cars like that. We design them with an element of humanity. There's a lot of sort of aggression on the road anyway, and we don't want to add to that. But you can have something that's strong and powerful, yet not aggressive. And that's the sort of design philosophy we follow. And so there you see, it brings communities together. It literally takes you places and transports you. And I think there's no better reason to get out of bed every morning than getting one of these in your Twitter feed. So with that, I hope you like cars a little more now. But thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.